Right. Oh.
Gents,
Howdy.
back.
We got Jimmie back.
Mm-hmm.
By the way,
Did not scare him off.
I got a text message from my parents who are our biggest fans. I don't know, are your parents our biggest fans? My parents are definitely our biggest fans.
My parents would never tell me if they were.
I think they're your biggest fan, actually. They're like, we love Dylan. And I'm like, thanks.
Dang.
Thanks.
Make sure you bring him home for Christmas.
Yeah. I got some constructive criticism, though. They said, yeah, you had that guy on, and we don't know who he is.
What?
And I was like...
His name was definitely in it.
But we didn't do like an introduction. Oh, you think my parents read the YouTube description?
No. I do know something else we have to do, though, is we have to get like a picture so we can post that as the thumbnail after or before. So whenever people look through the videos, they can see like, oh, it's these
that's
guys.
so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Some of the simple details.
Yeah.
Good note, though, because, you know, like Mr. Beast, for example, top YouTuber in the world, spends like $150,000 a year A/B testing and user testing his thumbnails for his videos alone.
Wow.
That's crazy, man.
I agree, but it's not about the dollar amount. It's more just to signify how much effort's going into just getting that first
Figuring
little
out how to manipulate people to get eyeballs.
Yep.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Put your hands on their brain.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So to be much more formal this time,
Yes.
we have Jimmie Thomas.
Welcome, Jimmie.
Thank you.
Jimmie Thomas, consultant, future author. It's a very near future author.
Founder.
Founder,
Father.
great father. Very
Thank you.
important there. And fellow church member.
Yes.
What else? What are we missing there? I think that covers a lot. I mean, there's a lot to Jimmie. But if you're going to say have we ever gone through what do you do question?
I had it on another pod, not on this one, but yeah.
I hate that question. Do you hate that question or do you like that question?
I'm starting to have a bit of disdain for the question.
Good. We're going to scrap it then.
Nobody cares. No, that doesn't mean that. It's just when you consult, people are like, so what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I help people do stuff that they need to do better.
Or wouldn't do on their own.
Or wouldn't do on their
whatever
own.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of put your finger on one thing.
Yeah. You know what's very impressive about you that I don't think a lot of people know is, this has come up relatively recently, the mental health awareness that you have is by far and away above average. And it's not something that comes out to mentally healthy people, right? We talk to Jimmie as mentally healthy people, and it's like, that's just Jimmie. But I think that you have a superpower at spotting people who are in disarray or in a bad state or in a bad physical state, whatever it is. That's a unique skill that Jimmie has.
Man, thank you. I would say it actually came out of a prayer that I had about 5 or 6 years ago. And it was kind of this revelation that happened since then.
That's all the detail you're going to give us?
Well, I was in, we were in a worship service, and it was one of the songs that said, break my heart for what breaks yours.
Okay.
And I started praying that prayer. I was like, Lord, break my heart for what breaks yours. And what started happening is like, I would meet people and I would be like, oh, they're hurting. Like I could just sense it and feel it, right? And so as I started to be kind of more in tune with it, I just realized when people are in front of me, and I was like, I need to take some time. And part of my old job, working in med device, right, you see a lot of patients. I used to have a ton of patient interaction. So that's when this whole idea of intentionality started coming along. And I would say I was pretty unaware before that. I was just like, I'm driving in my lane, doing my thing, and then I just started stopping and seeing people. But it's hard to believe how many people are hurting. But when you really stop and see, people are struggling. And I don't know if it's just kind of the season that we've come out of, with COVID and lockdown and everything, but I think people are wanting to get back to who they were or some level of semblance, right?
Yeah.
Of relationship building and community and fellowship and all those things. But you can tell that it's a challenge. So
There's a heightened awareness of it now. There's a heightened awareness of relationship now. It's like without the lack of, it was hard to see how connected or how disconnected you were until you take it away.
Yeah.
With knowing what it was like before, and then it's like, oh, maybe it's even heightened now since you've had this.
Well, we were forced to be so tribal, right? It was
like
like you had this circle of people that you trusted during the pandemic, and it was like most people didn't operate outside of that circle, right? And then now you're getting back into expanded community and interaction, and you're like, well, can I trust you? Are you one of my people, right? Are you in the tribe or are you out of the tribe, right? And so there's this kind of jockeying that I think, naturally everybody's kind of going through. But the mental health thing has been real. And, I think we've talked, my son going through it was a huge eye-opener for me, just to understand where, even as a father, we didn't pick up on a lot of the signs that he was struggling until it was like kind of in a manic state. And so, I just try to be more available and aware.
So there's a note there that is huge, which is you didn't see the signs until. And so we don't even have to go into detail. I think all of us probably know what's happened, but I think I almost have a cause for mental health now that at some point you and I are going to have a one-on-one to discuss, because I think it is such a crime that people have easy access to CPR training and active shooter training and all of those trainings, and they have no idea what to do when someone in a manic state comes to them. No clue. Don't even know how to know if they're in a manic state. And it wasn't until, I had a recent experience that I learned what to do, because luckily I have a sister who's a social worker and knows how to be in those situations. Had I not had her, would have had no idea. No idea. Don't even know where to go to know. And that is actually bad, because I am now the scoreboard of active shooters to people in a manic state. I'm 0-1, right? Like I've more people in manic states than CPR, active shooting, whatever. And I think there's a lot more of them out there than what people expect.
Yeah.
So,
Monday is typically a day where people, specifically men, are struggling. That tends to be a day that people have a heightened level of committing suicide than other days, right? Because
crazy.
I think you come off the weekend of living in this fantasy world, and then you come back to whatever is your challenge, whether it's finance or disrupted family or relationships that are broken, or trauma that are kind of unearthed as you get back into the weekly grind in that season. And so I think when you see people around in your coffee shop, stop at the light, grocery store, like, you can tell where people are just kind of like swimming, they're in it. And so I try to connect with people, give them a smile, try to be less intimidating.
Another 20 seconds at the cash register, like, not gonna change your life.
Yeah.
Might change someone else's.
Totally.
Really good.
People open up to you. I mean, I've met so many strangers that I'm like, thank you for sharing that. And they're like, I've been holding this for months, years, right? And sometimes, it becomes a relationship where I can point them in a direction to get help and resources. Other times it's just like, thank you in the moment,
Yeah.
Try to pay it forward. So.
Interesting. Another thing that I want to sit on there for a minute is praying the song. Have you ever done that before, Dylan?
Praying a song?
Yeah.
Or a song?
For like song.
Okay.
For like days after, or months after, or weeks after.
I have to say no. I get songs stuck in my head, so then inevitably I repeat them, and just makes me think about how whatever songs you're repeating in front of you are probably going to be repeating in your head, and they're going to do something. Like, they're going to affect your prayer life. They're going to affect your thought life. So
I've done that specifically. I didn't know that was from a song. So that's very interesting you did that. But I'm sure you do it. Just by seeing your reactions when it comes on, I'm sure you do it. Blessings. I pray that all the time, every night. And I just think of images of people in my head as I just over and over and over and over again. And also the joy and chaos. Give me joy and chaos and peace that makes no sense. I pray that all the time. All the time. And it really does. Something changes.
Mine is God Turn It Around. You know, that song
like
that John Reddick. I just stay on that because I'm like, sometimes you just know it's just things are not going well. You're like, just turn it around. You know, like I've headed down the wrong path, or I know I screwed up on something, and I'm like, just God, turn it around. Just over and over and over. Yeah,
it changes things. It really does. There's a power to those songs that people think they're just songs, and they're not. Like Blessings, are you guys aware that Blessings is not just a song, that is actually it's
part
prayer
of a psalm, right? Or a proverb?
It's in Numbers.
Oh.
I was reading in Numbers, in the middle of Numbers, and there's a part where they ascribe a prayer to Aaron as a blessing to the people of Jerusalem as they come to the tent. And it's that prayer. And I read it, and I was like, huh? Like, it's actually a thing. It
just connected for you right away?
It did. Right then. I was like, because obviously I was praying that song all the time. And I was like, it's here? That's weird. In the middle of Numbers. You would never expect it. So
good.
It is. The Lord bless you, keep you, may his face shine upon you. It's there. Word for word there in Numbers.
Generation.
Not that part, but
yeah.
And Lord bless you and keep you, may his face shine upon you and give you peace.
Yeah.
Shine his blood. It ends at peace, actually. That's what it does. Yeah. So
gotta get into Numbers.
You gotta go read through Numbers, man. It's an exhilarating thing to read. You never know what little nuggets you're gonna find.
Yeah.
So
that's so good.
Anyway, well, that was a little bit of a different turn than the entrance that we expected, but I love that. That's good. So
fluid.
It just goes, man.
Yeah.
It just goes. So before we hopped on, you were talking about change management and people not wanting to change, especially if the change happened quickly. What is change management? What the heck are you doing that includes needing change management? And what's the struggle specifically?
You know, with the consulting work that I do, right, I'm asked to come in and kind of review organizations or work with people directly and figure out, where there's inefficiencies or whatever. And typically it comes down to some level of process that's been established, right, which includes human capital. So these are people that have processes, they have preferences, they have experiences that have kind of built this way that they do something. And inevitably, it becomes inefficient over time because change requires us to evolve, not only in what we do, but in our thinking, right? And I think I've told you this, but Keegan and Leahy were like, the world's complexity and yours meeting simultaneously is like the challenge that we have, right, to change. It's like, how quickly can you adapt to the world's complexity and increase your own to deal with the changes of the world? And the challenge that I have with this a lot of times is that that there's some people that are so dug in and kind of abstinent to want to change that just even peeling back a little bit of the onion to get them to understand concepts of change become challenging. And I wonder if it's an age thing, if it's an experience thing that doesn't allow you to kind of step outside of that comfort zone. But I'm trying to put the nail on it, like put something in it that I can like resolve it in my mind that's why people are not wanting to change.
This is why they don't want to change.
Yeah, this is why. And I've just had trouble doing that. Adam said this weekend, which I thought was great. He said, nothing grows in your comfort zone. Like there's no growth in your comfort zone, right? So people getting out of their comfort zone, naturally there's growth there when you have to step out of that. And, I often challenge people to do that, but I can just tell that it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's like they're pulling the other way, and I'm like, one more little tug, and they're like, pull back, it becomes this tug of war, and it's like, is there a better way than pulling them to just say, if I can identify what it is?
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you from changing? It's very interesting.
Is it preference? Is it belief? Is it like this overwhelming conviction that you're just so...
Is it pride? Is it...
Yeah.
I don't know. Dylan, do you want to give a recap to Jimmie of the concept of like change for careers, like the skill wallet that we talked about last time?
How to relate. So, one of the reasons for Skill Wallet was it helped define a very clear path for people to improve on their skill sets and increase either their opportunities or job capacity, whatever that may be. Made it really clear and really easy to see, like, here's where I'm at, here's my steps, here's the goal. And the idea behind it was it would make it the more easy path to go into, like whatever it's prescribing you, as opposed to having to make something up and figure it out and fail a whole bunch. It could give you a better, almost like a little bit of bumper rails to be like, oh, nah, you can try that. May not have a lot of success.
Sure.
Where are you getting to with this, though?
I'll land the plane.
My
thought process
I'm like,
was
I don't know where I'm flying.
My thought process was this. So Dylan and I in the last episode discussed a version of change management for the entire occupational space. A change from resume and know a buddy getting into jobs and positions to a skill wallet that tracks your ability to actually do the job. So high schoolers like Josiah will be able to start coding. And whenever they've coded 3 projects, that's going to go into a skill wallet where employers down the road will know that they did those certain skills versus somebody else did something different. And that's how they make their hiring decision.
Love that. Without just checking the competency box on your LinkedIn to say,
proof
hey,
of
this
work.
is my... Yeah, so
the answer is proof of work. It's like,
Yeah.
and there's a crypto back into it where it's like proof of work is what Bitcoin's built off of, but why don't you make that real world and call it real proof of work, right? The problem is change management. Nobody wants to adhere to a system like that if they already have a job, especially if they don't deserve that job.
Now we're talking.
So here's where I want to land the plane.
You're talking about the part where I said people that are in charge of implementing the systems don't want to implement the systems because they would put themselves at risk.
That's it.
By doing it.
That's it. They don't want to implement that's it. Nailed it.
So to break it down. Now I'm getting back into it, y'all. I know I'm sitting here real quiet.
I love it.
It takes me a minute. So we said, like, is it pride? Well, it could be insecurity. It could be it's defense mechanism. You have a job, you have responsibilities, you have accountability. You're like, oh, I want to be able to maintain this. This is a totally new way to measure me or measure what I do. It's like, well, what if I don't measure up to this new thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I think probably one of the things that you would run into there, right, is like, what's the validation? What's the validation tool? Because I feel like so many people in the workforce thrive on validation, right? It's no longer just like you work to build the skill set or deposit in your skill wallet, right? Mm-hmm. It's, well, I do this because I get validation from a coworker, a boss, hitting a number, all of these things. And so I think we become such a validation-based workforce that the pure like love and joy for like perfecting the craft is kind of lost, right? Like you just me in my corporate world, I don't see many people that are like honing their craft just because they're like, want to be the best speaker or leader or whatever. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty good at doing this, right? It pays well, it gives me the flexibility, keep doing it. But I think the passion around developing, honing your skills, like you both are talking about, is a bit of a lost art, which I hope comes back.
It might be. You're exactly right. And the validation goes back to like TIC and appraisers and things like that. It's almost like validation is mandatory in the system now, and because of that, everybody thinks that it's sufficient.
Yes. Dang, I had another thought in my head, so I totally.
What you got? That's okay. What do you got?
I'm going to cut you off. Dang it. One of the things I'm not usually excited about, which is when someone thinks of something and they completely
That's okay.
upend what you're talking about.
Drop it. Let's go there.
It hit me though. Talking about validation, we were talking with Phil Kanata,
Yep.
quantum physics.
Yep.
You know, he didn't care like really if his knowledge like got anywhere else, but he cared. He said he has reoccurring nightmares about someone taking his PhD away.
Ooh.
The ultimate validation token for him.
True.
And I was like,
And he doesn't care. That's so true. So he put out all of his knowledge into a book.
yeah.
Did not care at all if people read it or not. I mean, he obviously cares, but he was like,
He's like,
I'm happy that it's out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy that it's out. But there's a validation tool that he was like, if they take that away, oh boy.
Well, I mean, I do a lot of work with people that are like, so your resume doesn't speak to all these things that you've done, right? And it's kind of like, can you really judge it by that way, right? Can you compile all of the accomplishments, skill wallet, into a 1-page, 2-page resume, right? In chronological order.
Yeah.
Based, connecting all the dots of everything that you've done and all the different roles, capacities that you've been asked to perform in. It's a really hard thing. I do a lot of professional development stuff, and most of the time, people can't tell you their career journey in a concise way. If you ask somebody, hey, what's your journey been like? 60 seconds, 90 seconds. It's like, huh? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I
so,
just deliver pizzas, man. It's cool.
Boom.
yeah.
Done.
Yeah. So being able to tell that story, and to your point, like, feel like you can just get it all out and it rests in a place that's good, I think it's an admirable thing. I mean, that's with me in this book right now, right? Like, you and I have talked about this. I'm like, man, I need your guys' help, but I also just want to get it out. Like, I wake up in the morning thinking, I got to finish this. I got to put this out, right?
Yeah.
I never really had that feeling before with anything that I was doing.
That's big time, by the way.
So there's two different, I don't want to call them paths. Dichotomy came up into my mind. That's definitely not the right word here. But there's the desire and the need to like just get something out. And then we're also talking about how to like validate or qualify somebody's skill set. And where am I going? I don't know, guys. I think, there's value in measuring both. In the skill wallet, I don't know if we talked about this part. Like in Carcado, it's called horsepower. And it's like a likelihood that you have to like do or try new things with some like level of completion. Not even success. But it's like, will you just go finish the things that you set out to do? Just a different measure. But
well, I think for me, one of the things that I think about with what you're talking about is who does the validation for you if you're depositing into a skill wallet, right? Is it you validating, or is there some system or some metric that, rubber stamps your level of competency?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Don't know. So let's switch back to the original change management and like some of the challenges of getting people from where they are to where their company or wherever the organization is trying to get them. He said you butt up a lot against trying to pull people and they're resistant and why they're resistant. Wish I could remember better. Because we talked about this a little bit when we had breakfast the other day.
Yeah.
And we went through like how defensiveness is one and like afraid of the change. So
does speed of change play a part?
The speed of change? Absolutely. I mean, the boiling a frog in water has always come up. Like if you leave the frog in the water, if you throw him in a boiling pot, jumps out quickly, too hot. But if you put him in the water and then turn it up slowly enough, he doesn't recognize the change around him, and then boom. I've been subject to this before, where it turned up the water a little too hot on me a little too quick, and I was like, I don't feel good here.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
In my last corporate situation where the change happened so fast, like I was in a company, it was small, it got bought by a significantly bigger startup with a very different culture and mindset and set of goals, and I was like, wow, this is, just feel uncomfortable, like sweating in meetings just because I'm in the room and not even have to do anything, and so.
There's an element to that, though, of losing what you're trying to change, which is, let's talk about cold and warm water when you mix them, or cold and hot water when you mix them, and they become warm. Did the cold get hotter, or did the hot get colder? Kind of think they both did, right? So you ended up getting to the same thing. There's an element of if you force the change fast and you force the shock factor, you get rid of those who absolutely were not going to change unless you changed too. You almost average out to them.
So good.
Or you get tornadoes and hurricanes.
Yeah, or it just gets really bad, really bad. So,
is that a bad tactic or approach? I mean, because you could almost make a case for weeding out those people that can't adapt.
I think it's good. I think that's in a. I guess it depends on the setting. It depends on the setting and the mission. If you are in a company or you just acquired a company and the setting and the mission is to get all the assets over, make things happen efficiently, and get rolling in the right direction, yeah, make it fast, make it a flash of lightning, and if they fall out, they would have fallen out anyway. Like, you're not going to grow accustomed to their standards. But what about at a church? Do you just change the church overnight, flash, and do it? I don't know, because that's souls you're talking about. And you don't just want them to fall out. I mean, you can't adhere to the standards that they expect. I don't know.
But I think that's a good analogy, and I think I could almost make a strong case for most of the workforce now in the corporate environments are much like the church, meaning the people are more important than the quote-unquote mission, because I think the relative level of talent that used to be in the workforce to where it is now is not, the pool is not as vast, right? And so I think the idea of shocking them with that lightning bolt, aspect of just weeding out kind of the weak or the people that aren't willing to change, right? I think you going and feeling like you can go find good talent to come in and fill the need that you have.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Wow. You're right. You're exactly right. And that's the biggest business problem, which is, do you then bend to the minority? This is all a question of minority rule. You guys heard of the minority rule? Society ends up bending to the minorities. Do you bend to the minority simply because you can't afford to not have them?
We're not talking cultural minority.
No. Whatever the minority faction is in the business, the people who are rebelling against the new culture.
Sure.
Do you bend to their will and ruin your reputation amongst those who were in the majority behind the mission and the culture and the vibe? Because you know that if you did not have that small minority, you wouldn't be able to replace them. That's a tough thing to battle and weigh. Are you willing to sell your soul today, basically, a cultural soul today, basically, to avoid the hardship of having to deal without talent?
I'm curious to hear your thoughts because you've been in the corporate landscape and transition out. I have mine, but I know you're kind of. I feel like you have a nugget to drop on this. It's going to be good.
Oh man, in my experience, I was pretty culturally unaware. Like I didn't know how to identify it, or really like if you had ever asked me about it and like what it was like or what it was, I could never define it for you at the time. I could do a better job now in retrospect, but it's been years. So, in a corporation, I have to imagine it's bad. Even at the cost of not being able to find the talent that you want to replace it with. Some part of me I just think about more about machines, and like if I want a machine to operate efficiently, I'm not going to like build my system. I'm not going to build additional ancillary systems to help support some like weak part of my product, because then I'm actually just creating like more places of weakness, and I'm creating more failure points. I'm creating more just really in system design. It'd be really bad.
So let's take that concept and kind of extrapolate that, right? Are companies worse off for building all these layers of middle management that are potentially fail points, right, from the messaging or the mission and vision of the C-suite? Or is it better to have a relatively flat organization where you don't have as many fail points, but the people are closer to, the executives that are building, the directionality and have the vision for the company?
That goes to complexity. True complexity, like mathematical complexity theory, is very heavily based on permutations. Are you familiar with permutations? You guys?
You're over my head, but I'm tracking.
Think of this. You have 10 players on a team, on a baseball team. You can only play 9. The complexity of trying to organize which 9 to play, let's assume that they all are the same skill or whatever, right? The amount of permutations, the different places you can put all of them, is a set number. If you add an 11th person to that team, it does not increase it by the complexity or the amount of possible permutations by one more person. It's one person times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5. Every new system you add in there, there's connections between all of the other systems that make it exponentially more complex than what it was before. And so, yeah, the layers of middle management cause a problem. What I wanted to hit on, a just general question for what you just said, was you just said if a company's a machine. And what I got from you is a company's more like a body. A machine, if the gear's not working, you can take the gear out and you can put the gear back in. A body, if you have a cancer on your liver or whatever, and you take that out, it's gone. It's gone. And so the question is a business more of a machine or more of a body? How replaceable are those pieces? Are they cancers or are they broken gears? Those are all things that I think are models that people bring to a business. I don't think there's a good answer for it, but I think that there's models that people bring to a business and they're different. Those are fundamentally different things, right?
Yeah. I'd say we were talking in a very similar perspective, in the sense of I was thinking about more like the design and building process of machines. So it's like then I'm going through iterations. So it's like, I don't like this gear. Oh, I'm going to build one without that gear.
Yeah.
It's not like replacing parts, after sales service, like maintenance. That's different. Like, so in that case, I would definitely side more with, like you said, cutting out a tumor and just like, let's just cut out the parts that aren't good and just like get rid of them. Let's cut out an appendix, like take tonsils out, take wisdom teeth out. We don't need those things, like, because they're going to go bad. So what are we arguing for? I guess we're arguing for like strike the lightning.
Yeah, basically.
See how it goes.
Let's wrap that up. Strike the lightning.
Yeah.
I had one more thought too before we hop off of change management, which is I don't know how much it scales in terms of difficulty. So we talked about changing an entire workforce. You're talking about just changing a small subset of that workforce inside of one company. Is it more effort put in to change the large thing versus the small thing? Because if not, you always go for the large thing. So in the world of investing, you always go for the bigger deal. It's just easier. It's the same amount of work. It's the same amount of effort. You get way bigger payoff with the bigger deal. So just go find the bigger deal. Don't do all the little tiny ones.
Yeah.
Is that true in change management? If you're talking about change for a bunch of smaller businesses, small, medium-sized businesses versus changing an entire culture, who do you choose to go after? If it's, is it harder?
It's a good question. I mean, I tend to think that there's key players in every organization that carry probably the bulk of the weight of the culture building
For sure.
process, right?
Yes.
Like, and I hate to bring Prime into this and Colorado and Dion, but I'm probably the biggest skeptic on what happened, because not that I didn't think that he would get talent or he would be able to recruit talent or he could coach. I just thought the timeline, the window between getting all those new players and building a cohesive culture, mission and vision was too much to ask in that time frame, right? Did I think he would do it in a year or two? 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a really dynamic individual who's got strong values and honestly is just for young men, right?
Yeah, he is.
And because he is that way, I just thought inevitably he would turn the ship. Did I think it would be by week one? I would have bet my farm against that, right?
Yeah.
So if he can do it with such severe change, 90 players or whatever, she struck lightning.
He sure did.
He came in, he turned the temp
like
up,
it, see ya.
out, but was selective enough to go find the pieces that I think had the mindset to thrive in the environment that he was going to create. And I guess when I think about organizations, I don't know that with all the factors that have gone on in the job markets, right, that I kind of work in, if you can find enough dynamic players that have the mental complexity or capacity to jump into that environment and thrive. I could be proven wrong. I don't know what industry is the right industry to battle test that in.
Yeah.
But in medicine and where I work, I don't know.
I wonder if it takes the right person. I maybe Dion was good because maybe I certainly there's a larger field of high school kids that want to play college football, right? He definitely had a wider pool of people to choose from. But I guess maybe where this narrows down to change management is, Jimmie, the book you're working on, the book that you have in your heart and your mind, could change the culture. And that could take 2 months of work. And if I'm being honest, it really isn't that hard. Like, we are not going to like day and night, like just grind over this thing. Like, it's going to come out naturally and it's authentic. And there's a message and almost like a Dion element behind it. There's a message and an authenticity and a care behind it that makes it powerful. And so, no, maybe you're not the guy to go into the medical field and shake up an entire culture of some big organization because you're not the Deion Sanders of that space. But there is one, and you know what that one will do? It's not that one has to go find a bunch of free agents everywhere. Established people will say, I want to be behind that guy. I'll go where he goes. You know? And then the culture just follows you.
I could buy that.
Yeah.
I could buy that.
So whenever you're pulling and tugging, maybe it's because it's not where you're supposed to be, pulling and tugging.
Sure.
I guess that comes into like an extreme ownership question of like, you're banging your head against the wall. Why won't these people change? Why won't they update the systems? Why are these things not working? And you never go, wait, is it because I'm in the wrong place?
Yeah, I don't want to jump too deep in the rabbit hole, but I think about that often, right?
Yeah.
Like, am I really the person to motivate, to inspire, to pull out that kind of vigor to get people excited about the change. It's probably what I spend more time thinking about than not, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have to be real with ourselves to say, hey, if it's not me, then who is it, right? And identify that person
Yes.
and kind of carry that torch and take it. But I think that that's a tough question to ask.
It is.
And I don't think enough people in roles like ours that do consulting work, that come in and, implement change, probably do it enough.
They're scared of the answer.
Yeah.
They're scared the answer is, oh, I'm not the right one, so this work goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, there's some like, there was a time when I was looking to purchase a horse ranch. Maybe you remember this.
Yep.
You don't remember this.
Yep.
120-acre horse ranch, friends of my family. I was trying to get money to do it. And what's so funny, man, about me and horses is we don't vibe. And I watch these people. Let's think about actually trying to pull an animal into the pen, right?
Sure.
Trying to force the change. Those horses would not come near me, not even close. And it's not like I'm mean or angry or anything.
Sure.
They could sniff it on me for sure. There was just a vibe like, hey man, I'm afraid of horses. You're huge. Like, this ain't right. But you watch them with the people that own the property, absolutely in love with them. Comes to them all about, like, they don't have to pull. They just open the gate and it comes with them. That is what you're looking for in change management. You're looking for the right person who, when they open the gate, the flock just comes. And if that's not happening, then you're Braden trying to buy a horse ranch.
I have so many questions.
I mean,
Go ahead, Bill.
I just keep hearing you say Jimmie has the skill set for, and I'm putting this on the spot for you and myself because I'm saying things that, anyway, back up. Jimmie's like the executive coach for these companies that need to change.
Yeah.
That's you go to the horse ranch owner, and you get them to, I don't know, maybe it's that they want their horses to start doing, I don't know, jumps or sitting or whatever, and you just get them in the position to where they are then communicating with the horse of how to sit and jump, and then it's there we go. You're not tugging on horses all day. You're just communicating with the owner, and then the owner doesn't have to tug a horse. But
it's funny that you say that, because two of the projects that I'm working on, I actually said, like, I don't know that I'm the person to lead all of this, but I feel pretty confident that I can identify the right person in the organization as I start to work with you that will have the capacity to lead.
That's it.
Which, when I said I had so many questions a minute ago, right? My biggest question is that built on time, tenure, trust, and all those things, right? Like, who that person is that can shepherd those people in the right direction.
Oh, like, how do you know whenever you found that person?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I don't even know if it's, I don't know if it's time. In my mind, when Dylan was saying what he was saying, in the feedback from you, you're like the vet. You're the vet. So the horse ranch owner comes to you because they say the horses are acting funny. They're not doing what they used to do. They're not doing what they normally do. You're the vet. Like, you diagnose the problem. You tell the owner, medicate with this, do this, or whatever.
Sure.
And it's back to normal. I don't know if here's the thing. The horses know who the owner is.
Sure.
Like, I don't think it's hard to figure out. You shouldn't have to, from the global view, go in and say, who are these people following and who do they trust? You should be able to just go to them and be like, hey, who do you like the most?
Yeah.
And you probably get a very honest and true answer that's like,
sure,
that's probably the one they follow.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's like a really practical, probably stupid answer, but
no, I don't.
Most people don't try that. Has anybody ever tried to just like go and be like, who do you like in the organization? Like, let's say it's a big organization, 150 people or something. You're like, who do you like in the organization? I don't know if consultants ever do that. they come in and try and use all kinds of weird business textbook?
I do, but there's a level of like trust that you have to build
For them to even give you an honest answer.
for them to give you an honest answer with candor and sincerity, but also build a level of anonymity where you can take that information, share it, and it doesn't out someone.
Yeah.
Right? I would say I probably spend more time protecting people's communication with me to ensure that we can talk on a level of off the record, right? That doesn't out them in a way.
Yeah.
So when I first started this, I was like, hey, these are all the companies that I consult with, right? And now I'm less willing to offer those things up and more like, I'm established, I do the work, confident that I can be a resource to you, right?
Yeah.
And I can share some of the people, if you want to really dig into, who are the companies that I work with, but I feel pretty confident that I can shepherd you in the right direction, right? So anyway, out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Very interesting. So change management, it's all about the driver.
The champion. That's what we called it.
The champion.
Before. Yeah. Like you had to have a decision maker, you had to have a champion, you had to have some enthusiasts, which were like people that were like identified as like most willing to listen to whoever the champion was. And the champion was actually very rarely the decision maker. Seems like the decision maker oftentimes was a little bit off-putting to the rest of the organization. So,
sure.
But then like the champion was actually someone that was just more in front of those people and I guess more on their side or closer to their organizational level, but had a different stake in the game or something.
It's funny you just explained politics like in the most simple realm ever.
Oh, it was really good.
Right?
It was really good. It's just like, and I'm thinking in the orgs that I work in, I'm like, he's pretty much right on.
We got champions, we got decision makers. Yep.
Yeah. And they're typically not the same person. Which is great.
Interesting. So we didn't get into the book. Let's just get a hint for the book so that when it's out. And what's the target date? Are we going for October 15th or something?
That's the goal.
That's 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
12/10/2.
12/10/2.
12/10/2.
I actually had no clue. I had to look at it on my computer the date because I was like,
listen, you're probably the smartest mathematician I know. I was trying to reason that math in my head too. I figured it was square root or something like that. Yeah, so mid-October is what I'm shooting for. The idea is uncommon men. And what makes men uncommon in business, in community life, in their families and how they operate and in their faith. And could it be that the way that we align those things or order them is potentially out of order? And so working through each one of those things, which, men in business, that's a badge, right? That's a defining thing for most men who are in corporations, right? Communities, are big as well because you want to be seen as an influencer, as a pillar in your community, especially if you have kids or, you're involved in a church or maybe you're on the school board or, whatever it is. You volunteer for, Boys and Girls Club, you're in societies or whatever. I think the family thing gets down to brass tacks of where you prioritize that. And then I think regardless of, your denomination or spiritual beliefs, there's some level of spirituality that plays a factor into all of us in decision making.
Something's going to come down to this where I think by the end of it, you're going to have a definition of the uncommon man, and that's going to help you spot those in organizations who are ready to be the leaders. The horse ranch owners, right? Like what you are developing is an entire context of how do you spot the one in the crowd who's different from the rest. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I think men specifically, we struggle with identity. We've talked about this before, but where are you willing to challenge your own identity in your business, in your community, in your family, in your faith, right?
Yeah.
And is that a common thing that other men would do, or is it uncommon in nature? You know, and we're reminded of this, right? We all talk about this, but you definitely know the men that are around you that you've been with that make uncommon decisions. And it's kind of like, what was he thinking when he did that? And then you see the outcome and you're like, whoa.
Weird. True.
Yeah.
He was on something different the whole time, but had a purpose, right? Emmanuel Acha wrote this book, Illogical, and I read it and I was like, he's uncommon.
That's interesting. I just now kind of started following him on TikTok, actually. What a guy. Football guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. What a character.
Deep thinker, complex in his approach, but like most of the things that made him successful were uncommon in nature.
Interesting.
And he continued, you know, he kind of outlines it in his book, but it wasn't the logical decision. Most of the decisions that propelled him to where he's at were the illogical decisions. They made no sense, right?
Yeah. This kind of plays into the, we went through, why were we talking about that subject exactly? We were talking about data and how it can kind of define or confine our decision making. And how if something, if either you built up a series of failures, like if you're actually looking at the data set in most cases, you'd say, well, next logical thing that's going to happen is failure. So let me just stop right here before I add any more failure data. Illogical thinking is, I failed all these. So yeah, let's just do it again. Or let's do something different.
Yeah.
I've never succeeded at anything. Why don't I just try this out? And from a data perspective, it makes no sense. As a gambling perspective, I think like, yeah, well, I have to keep playing if I ever want to win.
Sure.
But yeah, we went through that actually in our last episode.
Yeah.
But
well, and I have to bring this up because Dylan, you said something to me at breakfast a couple weeks ago that just blew my mind. We got on the
glad
idea
you remember. Yeah.
of the idea that the word manipulation or manipulating something is negative. And you talked about it being really a positive thing and like a break in an arm or, you know, when you're building something out of clay or whatever.
Yeah.
That's called manipulation, right? And if you were to leave it broken, what does that do to somebody, right? If you break an arm or something without manipulating that, putting it back in place or making it right. So I wanted you to kind of unpack that a little bit because I've been thinking about that for weeks, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this previously. But
yeah, we did talk about it previously.
Okay.
Let's see. So I'm just going to jump right through if you could map our brain, I guess this is where the manipulation comes in, and this is where the pain happens with a lot of people that they don't like manipulation, is if you could map out your brain and show where like things are broken, and then show people like how the manipulations are putting them back in order, they'd be like, oh yeah, thanks. But we can't see any of that. We can't see that happening. And so generally just people, whenever something is broken, it's like, well, my brain's not broken, so you're just attacking my brains and my thoughts and like who I am. And then all of a sudden I'm defensive and now I have to stay away from you. And so I label it as bad, and it's manipulative as in you're manipulating me in a way I don't prefer. It's really what the full sentence would be. You're moving me in a way I don't like. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a very, you talked about how our brain will remap itself or learn how things are attenuating it or changing signals. It'll remap to be like, no, I kind of want to be this way. I want to feel the pain.
Yeah.
It's like our brain, our aversion to manipulation is a defense mechanism. That's what. Because we want to protect our state in here. Like, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Could it be that the original question that we started with around change management, to put a bow on this, is that it's people's unwillingness to see manipulation as a positive thing is why they're so resistant to change. And true change requires you to be manipulated. In a way that makes you uncomfortable. But actually is putting you back in right order.
Y'all are teeing this up so good, so I just have to drop this. Because this is, I mean, absolutely teeing this up.
Good.
C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. I don't know if you finished our reading on the last chapter or not.
Yeah.
The New Man.
Yeah.
Something came, like, just hit me while we were talking about it, because I took a picture of it. So the whole idea of the new man, according to C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, is he kind of talks about people that want to argue evolution, and he's like, yeah, you look at evolution, and back in the day, if you're looking at the process of evolution, we would have just assumed that everybody would have gotten harder shells and more defensive mechanisms, and all of a sudden there's a brain and a thinking person.
Where's the knives in our hands?
Yeah, exactly, more offensively. Exactly, but then you have a thinking person. It's something you would have never expected.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, so now we think evolution is going in the direction of smarter and smarter people and more intelligence. And he says, no, the jump's going to be something you never expected. And actually he says it's already happened. He says that's what Christianity is. And it's God's reformation of us, his manipulation of us into something different and unique. And he actually takes the perspective, we always try to say church is old, right? Christianity is old. You should believe it. It's been so long. In the grand scheme of things, it hasn't. And that's what he says. He's like, it's brand new. We're in the first inning. And you're just now starting to see the new creatures, the new formations all around you. And so this goes to the uncommon man. And I'm going to read this from C.S. Lewis because I think it's so good. So he's talking about the new man, the uncommon man. He doesn't say uncommon, it's the new man. On this view, the thing has happened. The new step has been taken and is being taken. Already the new men are dotted here and there all over the earth. Some, as I have admitted, are still hardly recognizable, but others can be recognized. Every now and then one meets them. Their very voices and faces are different from ours, stronger, quieter, happier, more radiant. They begun where most of us leave off. They are, I say, recognizable, but you must know what to look for. They will not be very like the idea of religious people, which you have formed from your general reading. They do not draw attention to themselves. You tend to think that you are being kind to them when they are really being kind to you. They love you more than other men do, but they need you less. And we must get over the wanting to be needed. In some goodish people, specifically women, that is the hardest of all temptations to resist. They will usually seem to have a lot of time. You will wonder where it comes from. When you have recognized one of them, you will recognize the next one much more easily. And I strongly suspect, but how should I know, that they recognize one another immediately and infallibly across every barrier of color, sex, class, age, and even of creeds. They're here. They're us. They're all around us. Boom. The uncommon man.
So good.
So good.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Quieter, stronger.
Yeah. I love it, man. Anyway, we can drop off on that. I unless y'all have more to say there, like
That was
Yeah. I like the comment about how the church is really, this could be controversial, but it's just now seeing the fruits of what was set in motion thousands of years ago. It's like, talk about playing the long game. It's like, okay, something was set in motion. And just now, is it really starting, has it proliferated enough to actually have watered enough soil to produce like whatever this tree of life is?
You're
But it's
seeing
the
it.
new man.
And and the whole thing about God being the one that transforms you, it goes back to the whole like give yourself up to the Lord and the Lord will make you, something new to yourself. I mean, that's it's all manipulation. And you got to be open to the manipulation. When you're open to that manipulation, change management's not a big deal, right? You understand why the manipulation is important.
What was that line about time? They seem to have more time.
They will usually seem to have a lot of time. You will wonder where it comes from. That's it. So,
Unoccupied by other things, right?
prioritizing the right things.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
It's great.
It is. We're going to use it so much in the book. It's going to be beautiful. So, anyway, that's the wrap. Look forward to seeing the book here soon. It's going to be awesome. We love Jimmie. We love having Jimmie on. He's going to be on all the time. So, that's it. That's a wrap.
It is. All right. Let's walk out this way.
No,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Braden. I'm actually looking up something here we can talk about next time.